stratified squamous. So take note of that. But I don't know where in the esophagus this is. So I don't know if it's mostly smooth or mostly skeletal, because it doesn't say where the section was taken. So I can't ask you that question on the exam. Here's again, this is going to be just a cross section of esophagus by itself. But it's going to be a cross section, not a, or it's going to be a longitudinal section. So we can see those layers. So we have the epithelium or the mucosa layer through here, and this is again stratified squamous. You see multiple layers, nice layers. Then we've got the submucosa in here, so submucosa, and then this is the muscularis externum, and you can see two layers. Inner, in this case it really is, you've got the inner circular, outer longitudinal. You see the fibers are coming at you this way because they're circular. Here's longitudinal. So you can see the different orientation of the legs. And then a bit of the serosa. So you can see the four main layers. You can't really see the sub-layers of the mucosa layer on this in esophagus. It's not so obvious. So we just call this mucosa, submucosa, muscularis externum, and then serosa. So that's esophagus. Now we're going to go from esophagus to stomach. So stomach, this is where absorption starts taking place, right? So what cell layer or what type of epithelium is associated with absorption? Cuboidal, columnar, or squamous? Columnar. In this case, we're going to associate columnar with absorption. So we're going to see a transition from columnar, or great. Let's look at this. So look at the epithelium. It looks quite different. So here we've got, it's kind of wrapped up and folded in on itself. But you see this is dense, and you see lots of layers. You see multiple layers, multiple layers. So this is esophagus. We've got stratified squamous. And then this looks different, right? Yeah. It doesn't look the same. So something happened. We went from esophagus to something else. This is all stomach. Stomach has that simple columnar epithelium, but it's just there's folds in it, so they're hard to distinguish. But we'll zoom in on a few of them just to confirm. See a spot that really shows it better. See how these are really long? You know, there's folds in it, but you see how they're really long cells? And there's only one layer. So there's the nucleus, and there's the so there's the basement membrane. So that's a long one single layer. So that's simple columnar. Simple columnar, again, which is typical of the stomach and absorption. And then that's stratified squamous. That looks very different, right? So we'll zoom back out, and now that we can confirm that, and there's a really nice transition point. And you can see where something's going on. So here we've gone from esophagus to stomach. So what sphincter is this?
Cardiac.
Cardiac sphincter. So this is here at the top. This is cardiac sphincter. What kind kind of muscle are we talking about now? Is it going to be skeletal or smooth muscle at this point? Entirely smooth muscle because we're in the bottom third of the esophagus. And then into stomach. Stomach is also entirely smooth muscle. So, you see those multiple layers. Mucosa, submucosa, muscularis externa. Nice, you can see the separation. So, inner circular, outer longitudinal, and then a bit of a serosa. Really nice split right through the two layers. But then once you get down to the stomach, there'll be a third layer, but it's not really well demonstrated in this slide. Because I just see, so that's your first transition slide that you'll need to know is esophagus to stomach. Again, look at the epithelium, it'll let you know what's going on. So that's esophagus to stomach. Now we'll look at this one, this one's kind of faint. That's all folded in. So this one's faintly stained. I also like this. Hard to demonstrate. You look that on your own, but it's just too faint. Anyway, so let's look into the stomach now. We're going to look at the try to find some gastric pits. And this is just a section of stomach. So here we have the mucosa layer. We got the epithelium. We got submucosa kind of squished up in here. Muscularis mucosa layer. So that's from here to here. That's all mucosa. You can see that thin layer of smooth muscle. Then this is submucosa in here. Submucosa, and then this is muscularis externa. You can see, and then it's been cut off. But what I want to focus in on are those gastric pits. So the gastric pits start here at the top and work all the way down here. At the top of the gastric pits, we have the neck cells that secrete just mucus, again to coat the stomach, to keep it from digesting itself. Down here in the base, down here in the pit, the base of the pit, this is where we have chief cells and parietal cells and G cells, right? So the parietal cells are going to be secreting hydrochloric acid. They're mixed up down in here. And then which activates pepsinogen, which has been released from the chief cells. And it's going to convert pepsinogen into pepsin, make it more active, make it active, so that it can break down proteins into simple amino acids. And then there's the G cells, which again, they're gastrin cells, which through the hormone in the bloodstream, the endocrine system that kind of controls everything. But yeah, so that's you're rarely going to see. So here we see we can see neck cells kind of going down into the base of the gastric pit. It's going to be rare that you're going to see an entire, from start to finish, entire gastric pit, because it's 3D and everything's all squished around. but you can see the darker staining down here, so these are more active cells. So mucus cells don't take up a lot of stain, so they stain fainter. But these cells down here, the parietal cells and the chief cells are the chief cells are just more active, so they're going to take up a lot more stain, and they're going to stain darker. So you see that darker band, that's the base of the chief cell. The base of the gastric pit. So now, as we get down into the stomach, you'll see there are a lot more folds, and it's not as linear. So what are these really big bumps in here that we're looking at? The folds in the stomach, they're called rugae. So it's not going to look so nice on that before you see there's all these lumps and folds, these rugae. So it's kind of contorted. So I'm just kind of tracing. So this is the nasal side, and we're just following one rugae. You know, we can see all sorts of stuff going on. Let's try to get a view that's a bit more clear. Here again, we have a rugae, a fold. We've got the gastric pits. And down here, we have, the chief cells, parietal cells, and then the neck cells are all here. A bit of the lamina, or the muscularis mucosa, ending of the mucosa layer. This is all submucosa. And then the many muscle layers. There's 3 muscle layers in here. Innermost oblique, middle longitudinal, and outer. Innermost oblique, middle circular, and outermost longitudinal. So they're all there. So this is stomach. This is more like inside of the body where everything's really happening. You have more developed structures. But you see those lumps. This is low. I can't zoom out anymore. This is 4x already. Or I can't, Stomach. So now we're going to go from stomach to small intestine, or more specifically, stomach to duodenum, or duodenum. Some say duodenum. I've heard both. Duodenum. So here we have, remember, we got those. Sorry, it's kind of interesting. We have those gastric pits. They're not as, we have all those layers. So this is the mucosa layer, submucosa, and the muscle layer. So we're looking at that, then all of a sudden, look at this. What are these finger-like projections? These are villi. So the epithelium is arranged in a villus formation, a villi formation. So that's going to give you a heads up, hey, the epithelium looks different. We go from really short gastric pits to really long finger-like villi, so we know something's going on here. There's a transition. So we're going from stomach to small intestine. So this is where a lot of absorption is going to be taking place. We're going to have to increase that surface area. So we're going to have those villi. Let's take a look at a villus. And you'll look at again, it's simple columnar, same as the stomach, except for you've got a very different arrangement. So instead of the crypts, instead of the pits, now we're looking at the crypts. Gastric pit. Yeah, that's the East Coast, it's the West Coast. That's really what they're called. Gastric crypts, or the crypt stuff. And so it's all simple columnar. Occasionally you'll see a goblet cell, but not a whole lot. A goblet cell will be like clear spots where they secrete mucus. We'll see a lot more of those in the large intestine. We'll talk about that tomorrow. But again, we went from shorter, so we got the gastric pits here not as developed, or they're shorter, and here's the, and all of a sudden we got these villi. So we know we've gone from stomach, small intestine, more specifically duodenum. Also what's helpful is we'll look at the submucosa. We see these glands. They're like, they have these weird, here's the submucosa. These are Brunner's glands, and they're typical of duodenum. And they have that acinar formation in that they're all grouped around, kind of like a pizza, like slices of pizza, and then they secrete the bicarb into this duct, which then eventually ends up inside duodenum. So you have a ring of cells around a central duct. I see a bunch of them. They're all grouped together. So these are all Brunner's glands. They're secreting bicarb into the small intestine, into duodenum, to raise the pH. And that's all the submucosa. So that also gives you a heads up that you're in duodenum or you're in transition. So duodenum, stomach. So yeah. So that's the end of the stomach. We're going into more much more breaking down or digestions or taking place in a lot of absorption due to the physiology. So what sphincter are we at? This is pyloric sphincter. The transition from stomach to duodenum. This has got to be pyloric sphincter. This cross section. Any questions? So that's esophagus to upper part of small intestine. Tomorrow we'll finish off with small intestine and the rest of the GI tract.